Hi, everybody. We're going to skip the intros because we're old friends here. Oliver McAteer from Mischief, the man we love to hate.
Are we friends?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We are. We
Old
just
friends?
get a little jealous of you. And Geno Schellenberger, who I discovered through our good friend Steve Sapka, who's a great PR guy, who told me about Geno, who has this amazing media company called Breaking and Entering Media. He has a podcast. You've probably seen it all over LinkedIn. All these different creative executives are on there, and it's sort of like anybody who's anybody is on there. And Geno came from Havas.
Yeah.
And so we're going to jump in here, and one of the things that you guys have in common is I'm at VML. I'm in a WPP agency. It's pretty layered. We have huge brands, but you guys kind of took the keys to the car of your agency, and you're doing different things that other people might not be brave enough to do. And obviously your culture is part of that, Ollie, but do you want to talk about how that came to be?
I would love to.
Thank you.
So when I first got to Mischief, which was nearly 5 years ago, we didn't have any work, we didn't have any clients really. It was just a really strong decision to act like a brand and not an agency. That was the one thing that we were really, really big on. So to kind of take a back step, our whole creative process for our clients is really simple. It's 2 steps. It's 1, we figure out what are we trying to say, and then 2, it's how do we say that in the most interesting way possible. So we put this process to our own brand. And the first step, what are we trying to say, for us is really simple. We create work that makes a stir because we believe the riskiest thing a brand can do is be completely ignorable. So everything that we do just rallies back up to that. So now all leadership is aligned to the what do we say part. It's like, how do we say that in 1,001 ways in the most interesting way possible? And having that kind of, real tight alignment at top has given us that sort of like tether to go off and talk about that in really interesting ways, but know that everything leads back to that. So in answer to your question, we're able to be risky, or look like we're able to be risky in how we come across in our comms at Mischief, because everyone is so tightly aligned to what we're doing at Mischief. You can't be all things to all people as an agency, and we are not. We just do one thing really well, and we keep talking about that over and over again.
Yeah, that's right. I have a similar story with having a North Star. So when I graduated in 2020 at the University of Illinois, I studied advertising, and life was great. I had my first job lined up at Edelman. I was going to be in a rotational program there, which is no longer a thing, but the pandemic hits, and the job got delayed. So I'm looking at months on how can I fill in the gap. So I started to look around, and I was in my parents' basement watching Tiger King, and I was like, there's got to be a better use of my time, although it was a great show. And I started interviewing folks to really give back to the next generation. And I kept on doing that every single week. And I got better, more and more guests, some more interesting. And I got hired because of that at Havas. And they saw that I was creating my own media entity, interviewing journalists, interviewing other professionals, marketing executives, and they hired me because of that. And then 2.5 years later, we've launched Breaking Entering full time. And it's all about the North Star of sharing the stories and advice of those crushing it on the other side to give back to the next generation. So we're kind of like journalists too now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Everyone should buy his service.
Yeah.
We got the plug in.
It's great. It's great. So, so one of the things when we were planning this conference was somebody said, it's great if you're Ollie to go and make a TikTok or whatever, but if you're working at a regular agency, I don't want to say regular agency, like I don't want to say traditional either, but an agency, how do we do that? So if I were to go back tomorrow to Three World Trade and try to do something, what would you recommend me do?
Probably
to be braver.
I would figure out what you're trying to say before you decide how to say it. So I'd go back and be like, what is the one thing that we're trying to say at this agency? And I would just get buy-in from all of your colleagues, right? So it was like once we'd figured out what we wanted to say, I still needed permission from my colleagues to be like, look, guys, I'm going to do this, and I want to do it in quite a different way. Like, if I ever go a little bit too here or a little bit too there, will you do me a favor and like hold me accountable and pull me back in? And I remember Greg Hahn, our co-founder and CCO, saying, we will never dial back, we will only dial forward. And I think that for me was like the unlock of like, I needed that permission. You know, he literally gave me the keys to drive the car there. I was like, okay, cool, now I can do whatever. So it's figuring out what you're trying to say as an agency, but then sitting down with the people who will give you the keys and saying like, having a really frank conversation about how far you can go and what we should be saying, and ask them to hold you accountable.
So both of you use, video and, beyond an audio, beyond just, a press release, et cetera, to get your information out there. So how do you do that without a big production team?
Yeah. I would love a production team. Definitely
Same.
need one. We just posted a promo and the lighting was awful, and we're still learning. But I think, just investing in any skill, there's so much technology out there, and I would definitely want to talk about this with AI and some of these softwares where it can edit a long form video into 50 clips in one click. And you obviously need to adjust it and tweak it a little bit, but I would just say have a conversation with me or some other producers out there. There are tools out there that can make life a lot easier, and there's really no excuse not to create a bunch of content.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really jealous of what these guys do. These guys do, because when I first started doing what I was doing at Mischief, it was like I came from the journalism world, so I worked at Campaign Mag, and I was quite big on doing like interviews and video interviews and sharing those types of media. So when I came into Mischief, I was like, I am going to do this for Mischief, and I'm going to get a new CMO in every single week, and I'm going to, do like I did like 2. They were hard to do. The production sucked. Like, I couldn't get good sound bites. It was like 40 minutes of nothing, and I was like, I can't do this. That's not my platform. But then, TikTok comes along, and it's something that agencies weren't doing at the time, and there was just so much fun in just like green screening and talking about all of our client, problems and how we solved them and the insights. It was just, there was no pressure, and it kind of lived up to what we're all about, to have fun and not take ourselves too seriously. So I didn't feel the pressure to have to do kind of heavy production. So it was picking up every tool that I could to microphone what we do, So it was not being picky at all.
So one of the things that we're hearing brands are doing is more lo-fi creative, because it's really hard to, work in that moment and hook on to a trend with being overly produced. So do you think we sort of need to get over ourselves in that area?
Yeah, 100%. Like you just need to get over yourself and just put stuff out there. Again, like it all has to rally up to this North Star. It can't be content for the sake of content. Mm-hmm. It's got to have quality to it. And I think about our content as like filling 3 different buckets. We have to either inform, so news, like Mischief is doing X, Y, and Z, or the landscape is doing X, Y, and Z. It's educating, so it's taking people like behind the scenes of what we're doing, which is interesting. If you're breaking down an ad, it's interesting for consumers as much as it's interesting for a marketer. And then the third bucket is just to entertain. So as long as your content is doing one of those things, ideally it does all 3, then I'm happy with that living out there. So I have like guardrails in my head, so it's never just content for the sake of content. Mm-hmm. And all of the content for us, it will be different agency to agency, but all of the content for us is our process disguised as entertainment. So it's like, we'll take you behind an ad in 60 seconds, and it's interesting for a consumer, but what I'm actually showing the marketer is the business challenge that we cracked, the insight that we came across, the solution, and then we've got a little series called 10-second ads where, if we're in the business of simplifying very complex business problems, then we should be able to explain an idea in 10 seconds. So it's all of these things which, like, if you're a consumer, you're like, oh, that's quite cool. I didn't know that's how ads got made. But if you're a CMO or a marketer, you're like, oh, that's how they get to that. That's interesting. I might give them a call, and then not do a pitch.
Yeah. So how do you looking at your audience, do you feel like you reach the audience you need to? And Geno, let's start with you in terms of, what's your listenership or
Yeah.
viewership?
Yeah, I mean, so we started with the aspiring advertising marketing professional in mind, and as I've grown in the industry, I'm now reaching some mid-level professionals. Now they're asking questions about how do I get promoted, how do I make the jump from senior level to an ACD, and then we're answering those questions as our listeners grow as well. But keeping that core content in mind with who we are originally talking to has been phenomenal, because we understand there are new college students every single year. They graduate every single year, so we retarget there. But surprisingly, addressing that niche, we're seeing a rise in senior level professionals, like the C-suite, because they see their friends on the show,
right,
and they want to come on the show, and then we love that too. So what we still keep in mind of trying to help people break in and thrive in. So listeners are there, and we go to college campuses, and we're guest lecturing. I even taught a class at the University of Illinois on advertising, so keeping that in mind has been so great.
That's awesome. How do you get your interview subjects to not answer the same answers to the same questions all the time? Because that can be tough.
So I can't control that super well. I do say tangible advice is better. If I hear stay curious on an interview,
Yeah.
what's your best advice for aspiring advertisers? Be curious. And I love that. It's great, but give me something to research. Give me something tangible. Read the ad trades. Be curious about who's making the ads is really good advice. And study the credits is a better piece of advice. But I also think consistency is really important. So even if they're preaching the fundamentals every single time, that's okay with me because they need to be reminded of that.
Okay. This is kind of not on the subject, but you know me. So,
Where are we going with this?
Wait.
so the whole thing of I want to say kids because I'm 53 years old, but people right out of college and in their 20s, I've heard are sort of craving that in-office experience, and a lot of our creatives talk about how do you learn the craft or how do you learn about work if you're not at work. What do you guys think about that? Like you've been in both, and Geno, you really started in your parents' basement.
Yeah. I started in my parents' basement, and then I moved up to my bedroom. So that was a big deal. When there was the chance to go into the office, I went in every single day at Havas in Chicago, no matter what. Like even on the weekends, I would show up every day because I was working on breaking and entering after work, and I just loved to be there. So I preach to students and to everybody, if you can show up, go there, and you can learn so much faster, and you can walk into a room and somebody might throw you a brief or anything like that. I think that's so crucial. Show up to events, meet professionals. I love that advice.
Do your guests say that too?
Some are a little afraid. Some because I think they don't want to preach like the hustle culture, and I've seen people off the record say, no, I think you should show up every day as well. And then I say that. And I think that's an important message if you truly believe it.
Rob Riley believes it.
Oh, yes, he does.
Out him.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. It's a real personal preference. I mean, you're right. I've done both, and I've really benefited from being in the office. I mean, the best thing that I've done for myself, like my own livelihood, my career, just for my own enjoyment, is building a network. Love meeting people, and I could do that in the office. I could do this at these kinds of events. This event, by the way, personal space in my heart, because you're all like the people that I first met when I came in the industry. You're all awesome, and this feels like a safe space. So look, it's a personal preference, but we do at Mischief see a lot of younger people, especially, coming in because they want to be in the room with the senior people making the decisions to like figure out how that's being done, and like you need to see behind the scenes stuff. We have hybrid. We do Tuesday and Thursday, and I think that's perfect because now it's different. I've got a kid, life's a bit more hectic, and like I like to like lock myself away and write sometimes. So I like locking myself away and doing my thing and being the family guy, and I like to be like, hey office, what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what we like. So you were a journalist before. You were at Campaign, but before that, you were at the Daily Mail. I remember that. You learned how to really write punchy stuff.
Yeah.
So
really saved the world working there. Yeah.
So how do you think that helps you in your job?
I think it helps because, like, working on the trade side, especially, I feel like I know what makes a good story. And working on the consumer side, I know what makes a good story for consumers. So it's really easy for me to write a press release and to figure out where the pieces go. Just because having been a journalist for like 15 years, it's, you get taught how to put all these things together. So just having that as like a natural muscle flex is really, really helpful. But it's also beyond that and knowing how to craft a story. It's like knowing what matters more with a journalist relationship is like actually having a relationship. Like if your relationship is like 80% pitching and like 20% calling and having a random conversation with a journalist, you haven't got the right relationship. Like you need to flip that, and you need to be calling randomly, and you need to have a relationship and make friends because they're great human beings, and you can be friends with journalists. And you need to flip that. You need to flip that. Have a relationship, build a relationship first. Not do it so for any kind of nefarious. No, now I can pitch this. Just build that relationship and build it authentically. And you'll be surprised what comes out of it. When I was a journalist, the best relationships I had were comms people who would call me randomly just for a chat. And it wasn't any agenda or anything like that. We would just talk. And those people are still the people that I talk to today, because there were a huge swath of people that when I left the journalism world just completely cut me off.
Oh, I know what that's like. Yeah, it hurts.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is this what this is all about?
No. You haven't cut me off. You call me for advice.
I do, yeah.
So Geno, what kind of guests are you looking for as you look into 2025?
Yeah, so I think I've interviewed 230 advertising agency professionals in the past couple of years. So now as we're looking to 2025, the goal is to expand and understand what it's like to break in and thrive into fishing. No, just kidding. It would be marketing professionals. So any CMOs, VP decision makers, or even the entry-level folks on the brand side is what we're really excited about.
That would be really good, actually. Yeah, if they can do it, it'd be good. So I think we should open it up to ask a couple questions with our 3 minutes and 6 seconds, just because I feel like you guys are very interesting. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, we have a number of questions. Is everyone, okay. If everyone is jealous of Mischief, what is something, a piece of work or a client or an agency that you are jealous of? This is for you, Ollie.
I like, well, I'll speak for myself personally, not on behalf of Mischief. I like anything that, it's what we all want, right? You walk into a pub or a bar or a restaurant and was like, did you see what that guy did? You see what this brand did? And for me, it's probably the Pop-Tart edible mascot.
See that? That was so funny.
Yeah, it's talked about. It's got legs. Anything that has big kind of talk value. But more importantly, solves a business problem too. I think it's really rare that you see something big and buzzy and PR driven or something good that is really, really effective. And that's because of a lot of reasons. It's quite hard to share the results, Right. So I think a lot of clients stop people from sharing results. But yes, something buzzy like that, but with results.
Okay. This is probably for both of you guys. What if you want to do great work with great people? Sorry, hang on. It's just so many questions are coming in so fast that it's hard to read them. What if you want to do great work with great people but not be worried about climbing the ladder or the hustle culture? Is there room for that type of PR pro?
Yes, there is room.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely room. I think, at least from the creative advice I've gotten, there's no shame in anybody that wants to master their craft. And when you get to that jump from ACD to creative director, I know you're more of a manager level. So if your thing is pitching and media relations and you want to stay in that realm, you can really rock it there. I don't think there's an issue of communicating that to your managers.
Ollie, how does it work with client permissions and TikTok for sharing their stories, stats, and results? Do you ask for permission or forgiveness?
Whoa, good question. I think it comes back to what we're talking about at the beginning, where we're lucky enough to have a very clear North Star at Mischief. So people kind of know what they're getting. It's right there in the name. It's not called Greg Hahn Inc. for a reason. Mischief's an idea that's going to live on well beyond the founders. So people come to us already knowing that they're kind of expecting that. Have there been occasions where we've not asked for permission? Maybe. But I think as a PR pro, you kind of know where the edges are. And I think what really helps is, and we should talk about this a little bit, is the role that I have is more like growth in general. So it's new business, it's social, and it's PR. So I'm the first person that most clients will see when they come knocking on Mischief. So I'll know what their business challenge is, and then I'm with them for the entire time. We onboard them, and then I help with the PR side too. So by the time we get to the PR, which by the way is never like a can you PR this? PR is built into everything. Then I know the business challenge really well, so I know where the edges are. So I know what the sensitivities are, and I know how to play that in the public-facing realm. So I think any PR pro that is on the side and like an afterthought, that needs to change. You need to be as integrated as possible as you can from the very beginning, which is why it's a real blessing that I'm on the new business side too, because I happen to be there at the very beginning and then the whole way through.
And I think we're about out of time.
Are we good? All right.
I think we
all
are.
right.
Oh, okay. I just was told I could do one more question.
Oh, good.
Okay, hang on. Okay, here's an easy one. Geno, what's the tool that you mentioned? That was the video clipping.
So for long form video, if you have like a 45-minute video and you want to clip it and get a bunch of videos for that, Opus, O-P-U-S Pro. Opus Pro is a really good tool. And then I also upload a lot of the videos into ChatGPT, and they can give you like the summaries, key points into that. I do that all the time. I did that when I worked agency life, and I would just I would skip conference recordings and just put it in there.
What?
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
I grew up at one time.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you,
you, guys.
Ollie and Geno. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great.